Okay guys, welcome back. This is the video for day 6. We are on file R.5, the basics of equation solving. So that's where you need to be right now. Okay, by the end of this lesson, you will be able to solve linear equations, solve quadratic equations, and solve a formula for a given letter that's also called a literal equation. You have been doing equations since junior high, so this is nothing new. Again, this will be a pretty quick review, so we're going to move relatively quickly. Next page. An equation is a statement that two expressions are equal. To solve an equation oops, I got an extra I in there, I apologize, one variable is to find all the values of the variable that make the equation true. Each of these numbers is a solution of the equation. The set of all solutions of an equation is its solution set. Equations that have the same solution set are called equivalent equations. All right, nothing new there, moving on. Linear equations and quadratic equations, you should be able to know the difference by looking directly at the equation or the graph. It should be done by sight, okay? And a linear equation in one variable is an equation that is equivalent to one of the form ax plus b equals 0. Notice equation has to have an equal sign. Please remember that. Expression, no equal sign, equation, equal sign. Where a and b are real numbers and a does not equal 0. A quadratic equation is an equation that is equivalent to one of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a, b, and c are real numbers and a does not equal 0. All right, so here's the first one. 2x plus 3 equals 1 minus 6 times the quantity x minus 1. Now, again, don't forget you're going to be using order of operation to solve these, okay? So what's our first step here? We have 2x plus 3 equals 1 minus 6 times the quantity x minus 1. Well, you're probably thinking, I don't like the way this looks, so let's distribute that negative 6 through. And I think that's a great idea. So here's how we're going to start. Oh, and I do not want you doing this. That is an absolute no-no. What you're doing here is you're putting a line through that equal sign, and now you're saying it's not equal. Please do not do that, okay? So you're going to distribute that negative 6 through, and we're left with this. Okay, so now that right-hand side, I've got 1 plus 6. Let's combine those like terms. And we're left with this. Now, we're solving for the variable. So we want to isolate the variable. Isolate means to get alone. We have a 2x and a negative 6x. So we want to get all of the variables to one side, all the constants to the other. Well, I don't normally like to deal with negative variables, so I'm going to get everything to one side so that my variable will be positive. So I'm going to add this 6x over here. Those go away, and I get 8x plus 3 equals 7. I'm going to take that 3 away. Let's go, and I get 8x equals 7 minus 3 is 4. And then my last step, right, we're using our order of operations backwards. So x is equal to 1/2. Now, of course, you should be able to check this with no problem at all, and here's how we're going to do that. Okay, x is 1/2. I'm going to make this go away, so if you need to pause it to get the work done, please do it now. I'm going to take this because this is what I'm interested in. I'm going to just real quick copy this, and I'm using my shortcuts because I can. And on the next page, I have a calculator page. And we said that x was equal to 1/2. So I'm going to store that. Control, math template, 1/2. I'm going to store that, right? So now every time I put x in, my calculator is going to read it as 1/2. Control V, I'm going to plug in. Here's my equation, right? Hit enter, and it says true. So it does check out. And you want to make sure that you're checking all of your solutions. It literally took 15 seconds for me to do that. So it's very quick and easy. There's no reason you can't do that. All right, next page. Solve x squared minus 3x equals 4. And now this is a quadratic equation, right? And we know it's a quadratic because that has that squared in there. So the way that we're going to solve the quadratic is to make it look like our general form, right? Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. That's the piece that we want. We're missing that. We want it equal to 0. So to make it equal to 0, all we're going to do is subtract that 4 over to the other side. So our new equation is this. Now, we've had a lot of practice with dealing with trinomials. We know how to factor trinomials. So that's what we're going to do in order to solve this trinomial equation, polynomial equation. We're just going to factor it. All right. Well, that's easy for us. I have drilled factoring into your brains. We know we're going to have a plus and a minus. And we want a -4 and a +1 so that it adds to be a -3. So from here, we use our zero product rule. Right, zero product rule. And now we solve both of these equations. X equals -1, x equals +4. You guys are in pre-calculus. You should know how I got from this step to this step without asking me. Okay? So our solutions, our possible solutions, are -1 and 4. So what we need to make sure we do is, again, check it. So -1 and 4 are what we're going to be dealing with. Let's check those. I wonder if I have a calculator. Nope. Okay, so we're going to insert a calculator page. Control I, add calculator. So we're going to store -1, right? I'm going to go back and just grab this. So that works. And now store 4. And go back up and borrow this. And that works. So they're both true. Those are our solutions. And we should be writing our solutions as a solution set, -1 and 4. Okay? All right, next page. Let's try 3x squared minus 6 equals 0. Now, this is a quadratic. However, it is not a quadratic that looks like it's easily factored. So let's start by doing what we can with it. Some of you might say, okay, well, there's a GCF. I can pull that out, right? Well, sure, you can. Is it going to do much for you? Well, you could do it this way. Some of you are going to say, well, since I can't factor it like I could a trinomial, let's bring that 6 to the other side. And you can do that too. Either way works for me. Okay, so let's do it both ways. If we went this way, what would our next step be? Well, we have to undo things, right? So that 3 is in my way. I'm going to divide it over. 0 divided by 3 is 0. Okay, and same thing here. We divide it over. Okay. Well, we know where to go from here. We're going to add over that 2. And now look what happens. X squared equals 2, x squared equals 2. So can I do it either way? Yes, absolutely. Whatever way works best for you, I'm happy with. How do we get rid of a squared? We take the square root. Okay, take that square root. And don't forget, when you take the square root, it's always plus and minus. Same thing over here. You take the square root. So our solutions are plus and minus the square root of 2. Okay, and again, you write them. And you can write them as 2 or as 1 with the plus and minus. That's fine, but that works. Okay. All right, very good. Let's move on to the next page. All right, formulas. A formula is an equation that can be used to model a situation. For example, the perimeter equals 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. This is what we call a literal equation. All right, so what we're basically doing is we're moving things around without coming to a value as a solution. We're actually coming to an expression, okay? Or another equation, I guess we should say. P equals 2L plus 2W. I want to solve for L. All right, so I want to isolate this L right here. I want to isolate that, which means I want to move everything away from it. So what's the first thing that I need to move? And remember, we're doing this backwards. So I want to undo addition, subtraction. Well, here's an addition sign. Okay, let's undo it. So how do I undo it? I subtract it. So I'm going to subtract that over. Now, are P and 2W like terms? No, absolutely not. You can't combine those. So we're going to leave them. So here's, I guess I should make that look like an L so you're not confused. You think it's 21. Okay, so P minus 2W equals 2L. We got one more step to get that L alone, and that's to get rid of that 2. So how do I undo that multiplication? I use division. So my literal equation now becomes L equals P minus 2W divided by 2. Okay? And we will be using these quite a bit as well. All right, let's try another. The formula A equals P plus P times RT gives the amount A, which a principal of P dollars will grow when invested at a simple interest rate for T years. Solve for P. Okay, well, first thing you should be thinking is which P, right? Let's think about what we have here. Yes, we have two P's, but let's look at that as a whole quantity. P plus PRT. What if I gave you 2 plus 2xy? What could you do with that algebraically to change it? What could you do? Well, what you should be thinking is, I have two 2's. Why not pull out a GCF? That's exactly what we're going to do, and you're going to be doing this a lot. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull out the P. So now we get 1 plus RT. Now how many P's are we dealing with? Well, we're dealing with 1. Now we can very easily solve for it. So how are that P and the quantity 1 plus RT connected? They're connected through multiplication. So how do we undo it? We undo it through division, right? It's the inverse. So you're going to divide by that whole quantity. And so now our new equation is P equals A divided by 1 plus R times T. Okay? All right, let's try one more. All right, A equals 1/2 times the height times base 1 plus base 2. We're going to solve for base 1. All right, we want to solve for base 1, but it's kind of in an awkward place, isn't it? So how can I get to it? Well, we're going to start by undoing things. Now, in those parentheses, notice parentheses are all the way at the end, so we're not going to touch these parentheses to start. We want to start by undoing addition, subtraction. We can't touch this addition, subtraction, though, because it's inside the parentheses, so we're going to ignore that for right now. We're going to move on to multiplication, division. Well, I know 1/2 times the height is being multiplied here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that to the other side. I'm going to divide both sides by 1/2 times the height. And please remember, dividing by half is the same thing as multiplying by 2. So this becomes 2AH equals base 1 plus base 2. And I no longer need those parentheses because it's by itself. Okay. So again, dividing by half is the same thing as multiplying by 2. All right, one last step here. We're solving for b sub 1, so we need to get rid of that b sub 2. Very simply, subtract it over, and we have our new equation. All right, so that is the end of our point 5. And again, you should be watching this video anytime between September 14th and September 16th. It should have been watched before you come to my class on the 17th. Okay, I will see you tomorrow. Thanks, guys.